Today's agenda, we will be introduction to Syncello, of course, demonstration, live demonstration. I love those. Who knows how it's going to go, so it's very exciting for me to watch. And then getting the most out of Syncello and AI in general. So we have Andrew Cranston. Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello. Good afternoon, evening, and morning to you all. My name is Andrew Cranston, and I'm excited to share this stuff with you guys today. I am based in Nova Scotia. I grew up in and around Halifax, but I actually live in the Annapolis Valley now, and awesome to represent Canada. And I'm actually interested in if you lovely folks that are chatting, if there's any other folks here that are using Podio in Canada, because it always has seemed kind of a best kept secret. So very interested to learn about that.
Awesome. And a partner for 11 years.
And I've
I
seen it
think that's
all,
worth mentioning.
hopefully. I've seen a lot. Maybe not all, but I've seen a lot for sure. Absolutely.
For sure. And then we have Martin. Martin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Martin. I've been doing Podio for around 7 years, um, based in the UK in a bit of a different time zone at the moment. But yeah, really excited to show Syncello and everything it can do.
Okay, so again, thank you all for coming. It's really exciting to be here with you all. Martin and I have been working super hard over the past number of months on this product that we hope will be super helpful and super easy to use and super awesome. And just to take you through some of the features, we obviously don't have time to talk about everything, but we want to obviously show you some live demos and show you some capabilities. And truthfully, we've been testing on our own, but we're really excited to see what users will use it for, because that is one of the sort of cool but scary things about AI is that it really comes down to our own personalities and how we approach things and what we want to achieve. So we've tried to make it as capable as possible, and we'll showcase some things, but that conversation is very interesting to both of us. So this is our new baby, which is Syncello. Well, what is Syncello? Well, Syncello has a number of core products, and we're going to talk about each one of them. Principally, though, to say that Syncello is really a toolkit. It is meant to be a set of tools for an AI to use or for you to use for integrating with other softwares. We have a number of different platforms that we've integrated as a starting point. Podio is obviously a big one on that list, and a few others. And we're really interested in hearing from the community about what other platforms are really meaningful to you, what other APIs that you're using on a daily basis. But we're going to showcase some of the ones that we've integrated. And then we've got a few other products that we'll go through now. So starting with health monitoring. So health monitoring is the way for us to reach into your Podio system, grab up all of the apps, all of the workspaces, all of the fields, and all of your flows in Podio workflow automation in order to give you a broad overview of everything that's going on, where any errors may exist, or relationships between apps and flows that are relevant to certain fields. If you wanted to make some changes to your Podio system and you want to analyze what's going on first. So we've got a UI built directly into our application so that you can see all of this. But we also have some tools for Syncello AI to be able to speak to your flows and say, give me a breakdown of all the flows that are in this app, or give me a breakdown of this particular flow, or any flows that touch this particular field. And Martin's going to demonstrate some of those points for you. Air capture is sort of a lesser product in comparison, but we've been finding it really helpful where if you're working in Podio workflow automation, either as a developer or as a regular user, there is an option for you to go in and email any errors that may occur across any of your flows. But as anybody knows, as your system starts to grow, those errors can get a little bit overwhelming, and how many of them relate to specific areas of the system, and have I looked at this particular error yet? So we've created basically an email path for you to send all of your PW errors to us, and then we have a nice interface where you can see what's going on and actually mark something as resolved and use it as a tracking device to ensure that your system is always error-free. So between our health monitoring and error capture, we're hoping that we can keep your PWA system essentially squeaky clean. We also have a data sync feature. Basically, you can sync any Podio app with PostgreSQL. Right now, we support PostgreSQL specifically, and we also integrate directly with Neon as well. Neon is a super awesome Postgres provider. And basically, this just allows you to take your Podio system and put it into a place where not only you can connect it to other SQL-friendly systems like Metabase or Google Looker Studio or Plecto, but also, again, we have AI tools that will allow you to talk to your data. So you can do structured queries of your data. And this is really super helpful if people have Podio systems with a lot of relationships or a lot of basically sprawl, because when you're trying to do reporting on many different apps with many different relationships, we have to use the Podio API to sort of look all that data up individually. But with SQL, we can actually just look at the whole data set at once. So it's not really meant to be a backup per se. It's more just to be a companion, a mirrored database of your Podio system so that you can unlock a bit more querying power. And then we have our primary focal point of the app, which is our Syncello AI. We have a AI operator who operates on a number of different sort of levels, depending on the complexity of what you're looking for. And there's a number of ways to access it as well. We have an interface right inside of our web app. So if you go and sign up, you can start using it right away within the web. We also have a Chrome extension, which is what I'm going to demonstrate principally today. You can have the Chrome extension open while you're in Podio, and it knows exactly where you are in Podio at any given time, what item you're looking at, what app you're looking at. So it just makes it easier to say, you know, this item or this app or this workspace. Also, Syncello is a fully featured MCP server so that you can connect to Syncello using any MCP capable clients, but we obviously have found great success using it in Claude, and I'm going to show you how to connect it to your Claude account. I'll talk a little bit more later about the different levels of how you can get the most out of Syncello, but Claude is a very useful tool in here, not only to keep Syncello in your pocket, but for doing really complex tasks that involve sort of mass batch data operations or building complex apps or things of that nature. So there's many different ways to interact with Syncello AI, and these are just the main ones. This is our Syncello dashboard. So when you sign up for Syncello, you will be asked to connect your Podio account right away, and you should be able to see the connection to Podio right here in your integrations. You can see that I also have ShareFile integrated as well, and we have a number of integration platforms. We are working on Google, Microsoft, and HubSpot right now in terms of verification. Google is especially useful to us because of Gmail, and that's why it's taking us a little bit longer to sort of get it fully verified, but we are using it internally to analyze emails and actually send emails on our behalf, and it's a really super useful feature. Same thing with Microsoft and Outlook as well. And we have QuickBooks and Slack. So this is basically what we came up with because this is what we needed. But now we're very interested in hearing from the community if there are any other APIs out there that would be really great to integrate with Syncello so that you can talk to those particular systems. So I have my Podio integrated and I've got my Chrome extension installed here. The link to our Chrome extension shows up during the onboarding process, and it's also up here on your dashboard when you don't have it installed, but I can open it now here. Start a new conversation. So this is the primary method by which we interact with Syncello. I can click on the web UI and search and chat in here as well, but for the purposes of demonstration right now, I'm going to stick with the Chrome extension. So I'm going to demonstrate a few things for you. And again, this is not a comprehensive list. This is really just the things that we've been using for testing and for evaluation purposes. But again, I'm very interested in hearing what the community is going to be using this for. So here I am in Podio. I'm going to go to a workspace that I have set up, a demo workspace. I have an app in this workspace called All Fields, and it just has all of the different field types in Podio so that we can test across different fields. I have 100 test items. Quick note, I won't demonstrate it now, but I actually built this app and populated all of the data using Syncello. We have a bulk create and update tool as well. So you can say create multiple items at once or update multiple items at once. And I did this just quickly so that I could use it for demonstration purposes. As I'm navigating around the system, you may notice that the Chrome extension is responding to where I am. So it says that I'm in the All Fields app, and if I open up an item, we can see, okay, now I'm looking at an item. The options change depending on what you're looking at. So the first thing that I can do is say, okay, well, I'm going to summarize the values of this Podio item. It will look up the item you're looking at, and then it will go looking for tools in the toolkit and say, oh, what do I need to do in order to solve this? Oh, well, I need the item to get from Podio. So we can see that it got the raw information. This is just for debugging purposes, but it's useful for developers as well. Mostly we want everything to go super well. There are still situations where you might see errors, but we hope that the model will correct itself. And we've worked through a rigorous set of validations in order to make sure that the model can always find its right way. So here I asked for something simple, summarize the values of this item. It got the item from the API, and there's my summary. Simple put. Now, let's do this. I'm going to start a new conversation. We have a field here called date and time. I'm going to say, update the date and time field of this item to the current date and time. It has access to a bunch of documentation that we've got it as well. So again, it was looking, it had an issue, but it corrected itself and it's moving on. Now we're going to update this item. And there we can see the time has been populated. So again, I'm keeping things very, very simple for now, but hopefully it starts to just show exactly what is possible and what you can use it for when you are using it. Yes, Pallavi, I'm actually just starting to use separator fields, and we've actually taught it, all of the ins and outs of the separator field. So it's really super exciting when you can see apps get created with these sections, and I'm going to be demonstrating that shortly. So create an item, update an item. Now we have an app here with 100 items in it. There's different variances of category fields, single select, multiple select category fields. So one of the things is, and actually I think I'm going to take the opportunity now to just talk about this particular slide, because we have had some early adopters sort of really beat this system and put it to task and showcase different things. And while it is very capable, I just want to be clear about how to get the most out of the 3 different levels, which is you have our core AI. When you start chatting with the web interface, or you start chatting with the Chrome extension, you're chatting with our core AI. So it has a sort of narrower context window. It's not capable of really big jobs. It's really meant for small, quick tasks. Create a task, get me information about this, pull this information from here. And people, I've had some sort of limited success with doing really big batch operation jobs with our core AI, when in reality, it's not really capable of doing those big jobs. So we have something called complex task mode. If you flick that on, then we give the model a bigger context window, a little bit more capability, and it's good for these more complex tasks, but it does use tokens more quickly. And both of these inside of our interface, our Chrome extension, it basically comes down to using it in the best way for you. And then we'll show you how you can actually train using our playbook feature to have rerunnable tasks that you can use at any time. But to say also that MCP basically is a way of integrating Syncello with any MCP capable client. It's really kind of a new frontier. We're watching it sort of unfold before our eyes, but the higher reasoning models in Claude particularly. So you can have a $20 Claude Pro account and get access to its higher frontier models like Opus 4.6 or 4.8 and Sonnet 4.6. And these models give you in huge context windows, give you things like co-work, or if people have been using Claude Code to work in your own environment. So these are sort of the three levels of complexity depending on what you're looking to achieve. And if I want, I can flick on complex task mode at any time right there in order to just give the model a little bit of a leg up. So as you're doing things with the model, if you're finding difficulty without this turned on, give it a try. And if you're finding that your operations are a little bit more expensive, then you might want to consider pulling off into Claude. And we're going to actually look at that as well. So that being said, I say this because certain models are not super great at very complex math. Using the Podio API, we can gather a lot of items, but then we have to say to the model, okay, look at all of these individual items, now add up these numbers. And it doesn't always get quite the right answer. So we've created a tool specifically within Syncello called aggregate items. And it's like the same tool you would use to gather items from the API, but it just gives you the totals. So I'm going to say use aggregate items in order to give me a total of all of the number field in all items where single category equals high. So it's going to get the field IDs first. Okay, so it's just getting through the filters and the things that it needs to do. If it ever gets into trouble, it might look at the dot. Yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to point out when Andrew did his search, he did it very developer type. I have used Syncello and I use it in everyday normal language, and it can pull the same thing. So you don't have to do it, with quotes or equal tos. You can literally just type it out as if you would ask a person, and it's been performing very, very well for me too.
And that's a really, really great point too that Kelly made, in that we're all individual human beings. We all have different language patterns. We have different interaction points. And we're trying to make the model better every day by just looking at the way people are using it and trying to add those guardrails and safeguards. So I totally agree. And that's just a different way. So if I were to filter now in Podio, where the single category field is high, and I'm going to do a quick calculation of the number field, I can see now that the two numbers match. So if it just uses filter items specifically, it might not get the right answer. But if we coax it with aggregate items, and this is it, we're just trying to give it more capability by giving it more recommendations. But sometimes the model will go off on its own, and that's just one of the things that we're trying to account for. So it did get the right answer eventually and got there. And then one thing I could do here now is say, now that we have completed this, can we write a playbook to use to get these numbers in the future? So a playbook is basically a reusable workflow. You being able to write a short haul workflow in real language, save it as a playbook, and then later on you can just run those playbooks, and you don't even need to say anything else. You can just go somewhere and run that playbook. So we've saved this playbook. Now, if I go back into the Syncello dashboard and come into my settings, we can see that, first of all of the tools that get data will all be auto approved by default, but you can see that there have been tools where I've had to click approve, and everything that either creates, updates, or destroys something, it has to be approved by the user, but you can choose to auto approve tools in any category. Also, just to state, just for people in case you get nervous thinking about this, we've made it impossible for Syncello to delete a Podio app and to delete a Podio workspace. It's impossible for our agent to do those things, so never fear. We've just made it clear that that those things should be done by a human in all cases anyway. And then we can see the playbook here that it wrote, and I can make adjustments to it and save it. Later on, when I want, I can come back into the same app, start a new conversation, and all I have to do is select that playbook. I don't even have to say anything else. It will just run that playbook. So it got me the answer much more quickly because now it has the context in order to achieve its goal. And that is everything right there in that demonstration. The more information you can give it, we have trained it to be very useful, even in very vague situations, but the more information you can give it, the better success that you will have. So that's our aggregation tool. Now, let's say, let's see how many category fields we have that don't have a value. 19 of them. Okay, so I'm going to say update all items in this app where category single select is blank and update it to a value of low. Now it's going to get those items. And this is, again, something that complex task mode might have made it a little bit easier, but I'm trying to stick on the core model to show what it's capable of. So it's going to update all of those items. This is our batch update items tool. Okay.
In
So now
case,
if I
Andrew, just quickly, when you were on the AI settings page before, I don't think you quite explained, because currently you're hitting approve to batch update, but you don't have to always hit approve. You can just flick the auto approve on for that tool and it will just run it straight away.
looks like it maybe missed one, but it did get the other 18. Yes, but again, to explain those three levels of complexity and batch operations and things that require holding on to a lot of data, we really do recommend complex task mode, but we also recommend that you give it a try in the core model, and as long as you explain what you're looking for. It is interesting how it missed one, but there were 19, I believe. But so we're just going to move on from this now. Okay. So we've dealt a lot with items. So now let's talk about. I'm going to say. I don't know if you folks use this. I use a tool called Whisper Flow, and I'm just going to speak to it to speed this along. Create a pair of apps in this workspace, one to track recipes and one to track ingredients. Do a web search for the best fields that will go into both of these apps and then create them. Make sure that both apps are broken up into sections using section headers. So that is my prompt. And again, we're achieving things with very, very little context. Obviously, if you really wanted to do this, you could provide a text file with all of the fields that you would want to go in these new apps. We can build very complex systems. Just thinking about the fields that it's going to be using. Okay. And now we're going to want recipes related to ingredients. So it would have created ingredients first and then created, oh, actually, it looks like it's going in that direction. Okay. Let's take a look at what we've got here. So I have a recipes app. Oh, it didn't seem to use section headers. Again, these are the things that we're sort of just getting the model used to because it's sort of a new feature, but you can see that it did come up with these fields. One thing that I did forget to say is that I wanted them related to one another. I didn't say that. So if recipes would be related to ingredients. So I could say add a relationship field to recipes to add multiple ingredients. There we go. So now we have a relationship field to the ingredients app, and we can add ingredients and then relate them to our recipe. And again, these are just broad examples, and you can see how they would apply to you specifically. One other thing is we do have some core tools as well. So we've talked a lot about other platforms, but we have some core tools. You just saw one of them at work. That's the web search tool. But we also have the capability of analyzing files, PDFs, images, CSVs, spreadsheets, generating PDFs or CSVs or Excel files, generating charts like bar charts, line charts. These pair quite well together. You're able to aggregate data, generate it like a bar chart or a pie chart, and then put it specifically into a new PDF summary. And then we already talked about playbooks. So I am, what's here on my list now? Yes, okay. So if I say back to my, I have a field here, excuse me, I have an app here called Invoices. If I have a file on my computer, this is an invoice for when I registered my choir for local government involvement here. Just been using this as a test invoice. So now I can say, analyze this invoice and then create an item in the Invoices app with the best fields filled in possible. So once again, trying to achieve something without any more context than just do this. So it'll analyze that PDF that I just uploaded. Now it's going to get that Invoices app. Okay. Now if I refresh my screen, we can see the new item that it created, and it filled in all of the fields, all the information from that particular PDF. And if I wanted, I could have had it uploaded that PDF to Podio as well. So that's just an example of our Analyze File tool. And now to get a little bit more complex, and here I am actually going to flip on complex task mode and say, I'm going to say get for all of the items in this app, generate a chart breaking down everything by single category, and then add that chart to a PDF summary. Once the PDF is generated, create a Podio task for me to follow up tomorrow at 9:00 a.m. and attach the file to the task. Oh, again, not sure what's happening there. I'm just going to give this one more go. Generating PDFs is a little bit tricky because there's only so much that it can really get into the PDF. So again, it's really good for small sort of short reports. And this is another example if you really needed sort of like larger reports or more data analysis to actually pull it out into a higher reasoning model like Claude, and you'll get a better success. So it's going to generate a chart based on what it found. And now it's going to combine everything that it had into a PDF. I think to create the task first. Yeah. and then we can upload it. Okay, so now if I go into my Podio tasks, I'll see I have a task due tomorrow. There's my PDF, and there's a summary that it generated. Now that's with no context. That's with no information whatsoever. No, I want it to look like this. I want it to have my logo. I want it to gather data from this specific location. This is just for demonstration purposes. But imagine what you could achieve if you just sat down, wrote it all into a text file, and then uploaded it and say, make this happen for me. As long as you give it the necessary context. And again, complex task mode is good if you're working in situations where your apps have a lot of fields or you have a lot of apps with a lot of relationships. One thing I will say too is that we are going to be doing some webinars on our own to show how you can leverage data syncs to sync your data with SQL and do this reporting. All of that can also be saved as playbooks. So if we have the agent run some SQL queries for us and then we can save those, all you have to do is click a button and you could have this report spit out in a moment. And if you needed to make changes to it, so those who have, if those of you who are working in Podio and have not necessarily connected yourself to a partner and you're having difficulty, that's obviously Kelly's biggest passion. If you are looking to speak to a partner, please get in touch with Kelly. There's lots of amazing partners out there who can help, but there are definitely folks out there who have forged their own way in PWA, which is super awesome. And for anybody who's done that or has any sort of experience in PWA, you know how difficult it can be sometimes to go in constantly and make adjustments or reach out to a developer or a partner in order to make adjustments to a workflows. And while that is still necessary sometimes, it is sometimes easier to just write a workflow in plain language and save it as a playbook. So really it's about giving people options and different ways of doing things. The last thing I'm going to demo before handing over to Martin is to talk about how we can connect this with Claude, just super quick. So we have an API key system. I realize this might get slightly techy, but truthfully, just to state what we've done here, we want to make sure that people are comfortable with what tools they're giving access to what models. So for us to give us an API key and say that everything that this model is capable of is now available in Claude might be a hard sell for some folks. So I can create a new API key, and I can only give it access to the Podio read tools. So now this API key is only good for reading data out of Podio and nothing else. And I'm going to create this. I don't need this key for now, but what I'm going to do is come over here. This is my Claude account. I'm going to come to Customize, add a custom connector. We'll call it Syncello. Now, the URL that you put here is actually in our documentation under tools. You can actually access any of our tools here in the browser as well. But in MCP, you'll see instructions on how you can get it set up with other MCP servers. This is the URL I'm looking for right here. So if I add that, now I'm going to connect to Syncello using OAuth. And in order to do that, I have to select an API key that I want to use. In this case, I'm going to use the one that I just created. And it's as simple as that. Now you can see Syncello is a custom connector in Claude. All of the tools that I have in Claude, if I make adjustments later on, I can refresh that tools list. But now I can come into Claude with the highest reasoning models. And I'm just going to do a stupid demo just to show it works. But so it's the same process. Claude has all of these tools. It's going to go searching for the right tool that it needs, and then it's going to use it. So now you can work with Syncello and Podio and any of your integrations from Claude or any other MCP capable client, but really we highly recommend Claude just because Anthropic created MCP, so it makes sense that they support it to the level that they do. So if you're having difficulty with our models, give Claude a try. And we're also going to do webinars in the future on how to get more out of Syncello with things like Claude Cowork and Claude Code. and eventually show you how we can build portals on top of Syncello as a back end. There's lots of things that we're going to be looking at. I'll talk more about that when we come to the end of the call.
Okay, cool. So yeah, this is again the dashboard, and here is where you will actually see your usage in terms of what tools you've used and also how many credits they cost you. So yeah, I saw that was one of the questions in the Q&A, so just showing it right now. What I want to show you first is the health monitoring. So as Andrew said before, health monitoring basically gives you a health check of your whole organization, all of your apps, all of your calculation fields, if they're referencing broken fields or if they're referencing fields that have been deleted. Same with flows, if they're referencing fields that have been deleted or they're trying to search an app that's been deleted. Health monitoring basically gives you that whole overview. So here you can see I have 5 workspaces synced, and I can see I have an error, an app error, and an app warning. An app warning is always going to be that the field has been renamed but not replaced in a calc field. Not a big issue, but it just shows you that. So if I was to go into this error here, and I can now open this flow, and it will open directly in PWA. For those of you that build in PWA, this might look a bit odd to you. We also have PWA dark mode in the extension. So when you open the extension, you go into settings, you can toggle dark mode if you're a dark mode user. It's pretty nice. I'm going to keep it as light mode for this. So it highlights the bricks in red where the errors are. And you can see here we have all of the errors. So to fix this, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove everything that's errored as a quick fix. And then this as well. And then hit save. The 2 that I just removed aren't actually errors. They're just in a workspace I don't actually have access to right now. And you'll see it live resyncs that app. So then in the UI, those errors are going to be removed, and you're going to get back to a clean slate. So essentially, you want to see none of your workspaces have any errors, and 1 or 2 errors is fine, but it just gives you a really nice overview. You can see all of your apps, all of your flows. Currently, I have only 5 workspaces synced, but I have an org that has thousands of flows. I can sync all of them. And the great thing about health monitoring is not only the fact that it gives you an overview of your whole organization, the other great thing is that AI then has access to those flows. So I could go into this workspace. So this is kind of a Podio forum that I have. And I can then open the extension and say, list all the flows in this workspace. Let's see if that'll work. It's not very specific. So as Andrew said, you want to be as specific as possible. I should have said something like list all the flows that are used in this workspace or something more specific, but it still gets there. So you can see it's listed these 2 flows now. We got demo video uploaded, new demo video. And I can say, give me more details about them. So it's basically just got, for those that can kind of read a little more developer stuff, it basically just got the bare information in terms of the flow name and the flow ID. You don't need to see that. But then what it will do is it'll get more information. So it'll get the whole flow as it is, and it'll display it to you so you can see exactly what it does. But you could go a step further. For example, if you had a big workspace, and again, if you're going to be analyzing hundreds of flows, I don't recommend you use the extension. You should connect us to Claude, like Andrew just showed, and use Claude, or at least use complex task mode so you have that bigger context. But you could essentially take a workspace and ask, if you had an app, for example, that had 50, 70 flows, you could, in theory, ask Claude to look at all of those flows and tell you what does what. And what it can also do, so kind of like when you're in the UI here, you have these filtering options. So you can filter by the trigger type, you can filter by the step type. So for example, if I wanted to see which flows delete items, I can select delete item, and it shows me which flows are deleting items within my org. And actually, this is filtered by workspace. I can remove the workspace filter, so now it's filtered by all workspaces. But to go a step further, you could ask the Syncello AI which flows update this status field to dead, for example. Which flows update this status field to completed. If you have a lot of flows, they're hard to kind of search through, but there's something happening in Podio. Some flow is updating a field and you don't want it to do that. You can ask Syncello to find the flow that's doing that and then just fix it straight away. So you don't have to spend hours looking through all of your flows. So yeah, really useful. And I think just as a kind of overview, you get a lot of clarity with the health of your workspace. So then go into error capture. So error capture is, as Andrew said, it's a way to capture all the errors that come from PWA. And the simple way to do that is you generate an error email. So you can have as many error emails as you want. You generate an error email, and then you copy that, go over to PWA, go into your logs, and then paste the email in here. And that's it. All of your errors are then going to show up in here. And the cool thing about this is not only can you say, mark these as reviewed or mark them as fixed or whatever, you can set rules. So for example, if I never wanted to see errors where items have been deleted, I can add a new rule, deleted, I'll just call it deleted items. And then I'll say where error message contains item is deleted, I can either mark it as reviewed, fixed, or deleted. I'm going to delete the error straight away. I never want to see it. I don't care about it. So, and then I can run the rule on existing errors as well if they've built up a little bit. Say, you built a flow, it had an error, you fixed it now, and you want to delete all those errors. So then I can save this rule, and then it's basically going to apply that to all of them. It'll work in the background and just go through them. So if I now search here, items have been deleted. If we give it a few seconds, it'll notify us with a message when all of them have been updated. So, and these rules, you can create as many as you want. And yeah, it'll just run through them. So you see it didn't do this one because it only runs on ones that are marked as pending, not ones that are marked as reviewed or fixed. Yeah, and I think those are, so AI, as Andrew said, is our main focus, but it's also creating tools around Podio, around the AI that are useful to you. Like having an AI be able to read your flows, understand your flows is really, really useful. For those that do a bit of building in PWA, we've added some nice PWA features that if you are building your own workspace and debugging are really nice to have. So for example, if I go into, I'll create a new flow. We have shortcuts as well. So instead of having to go into here, go into add new, press new flow, then select the flow, all you have to do is select the app and then do, which is semicolon and M, and that basically opens up your manual flow. Semicolon C. So again, they're shortcuts, they're nice to have, but they save a lot of time. So that's your item is created flow. So 4 or 5 clicks has turned into just one keyboard shortcut. So then I can give this a name, and we have our own Syncello brick. So you can now use all of the tools that you have connected. You can use them directly within your automation. So I can get item, for example, and you can add your API key in here. You're able to save API keys. I have one here. I'll just add it. I'll be deleting this API key later. And then I can give this API key a name, just put test in, and then hit save. So now next time, whenever I want to create a automation block, I can just select it from my saved API keys. And then I'm going to remove all of this because all I want to do is get this item, and then I'll just put in the item ID. And another really nice feature that I've used so much since we added it, and it's so helpful for debugging. Usually when you want to simulate variables, this will go over a few people's heads, so I won't go too much into detail. But usually when you want to simulate variables, you have a short list to select from. But if you have 10,000 items, you might want to select from a list an item that's towards the bottom, but you won't be able to do it here. So now you can add in a custom Podio item ID and run it directly against that. Super, super useful for debugging a specific item. And yeah, so I can then run this, get this item. It's then going to basically reach out to Syncello. I didn't actually add the result, but I mean, I don't need to do this. It works exactly like a HTTP call works. I'm going to do it anyway. So I'd add it here, add it, run it, and then we get all of the item details. But yeah, and then again, if you're someone that works with multiple accounts, we also have added a search feature where you can now search through all of your different orgs. Just again, something quick and user friendly. But yeah, I think that's as much as I have to show currently.
Our community page is ready to go. We've got a blog post up there, and we're going to be adding blog posts as we go. You can view all of that stuff without signing up for an account, but if you do sign up with us with our forum, then you can interact with us. And we really want to develop this out in the open. We really want to hear from the community. We want people to be involved. So please join us on the forum. And also inside Syncello, if you have any difficulties, you can create a support ticket, and there's also a place in there to add feature requests as well. So whatever makes the most sense to you, please just get in touch and let us know how you're making out.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much for your time.